So we're out here today to talk about the Conditt family. The Conditt family, namely Herman, he was 22 when he passed away. Herman was just your normal guy in Nashville. So Norman hit the papers in 1913. That's when he was killed. And he was killed in the most unusual of circumstances. So Herman was just a normal guy. He lived in a fairly upper middle class, what we would consider today upper middle class life. He had an upper middle class upbringing. He was the son of a doctor. He had disposable income. He had hit 22 where he was able to start being on his own. Herman, though, liked the ladies. Nothing wrong with that. Ultimately, he had a girlfriend, and that girlfriend and him had a normal life. They were dating. They had, in fact, according to the newspaper article that we're about to discuss, that we are discussing, they had their normal fights. They were engaged. An engagement back then would have been a big deal. And I've got the newspaper article here in front of me from 1914. Herman was part of a love triangle between Dolly Parker himself and another woman, which is not named in this article, although I know I've seen her name. So if I find her name, I'll put it down here. Ladies, not such a big deal until you realize that he was the son of a doctor. And because he was the son of a doctor, he had the advantage of being able to go to the red light district and take advantage and take the services of some ladies of ill repute, ladies of the night. Today we call them prostitutes or escorts, not escorts. So he had found himself a lady of the night that he liked. Her name was Dolly Parker. And Dolly said that she fell in love with him the first night that she met him. Probably she fell in love with him because he was fairly decent to her, because he was a regular patron, and because he's somebody she came to get to know. So, because Herman was this regular visitor, I don't know, it doesn't say if his parents were aware of it or not. Being a doctor, they would have been a little bit of a upper middle class, so they would have been part of society. This probably was not looked on nicely. Adelicia Acklin, which is buried over that way, the Belmont chick, we'll call her the Belmont chick, the lady of Belmont University, her husband went down to the red light district, and she told him he could just stay there until he decided that he wanted to be a good man. It was definitely not something that was looked nicely upon in society, but it is something that gentlemen did. Herman was no different with that. He had his quote-unquote needs, and he went down there, and Miss Dolly obliged him for her price. Now, this went on for a period of time, and Dolly really got used to seeing Herman. She thought that they were engaged. Probably they had talks of along the lines like girls who today are trying to trap their guy in of, one day we're going to get married and this is going to be great and please let's get married. And he, in the throes of passion, said, I love you, of course we'll get married. Unfortunately, that's just not the way society worked back then. Miss Dolly had no shot at getting married to Herman. Herman knew it, but he really didn't want to deal with probably all that female drama stuff. So he let it play along. Herman, in the meantime, of course, being part of upper middle class, was going to balls and parties. He met another lovely lady. Once again, I'll insert her name down here. He met her. They started hanging out on a regular basis. He had a decent woman he could bring home to his mom. He could introduce in society, who could be, in fact, the wife of his wife and the mother of his children. He moved forward in that relationship. One night, on this fateful night in 1913, he decided to go to the red light district. He and his lady had had a fight, and he was angry, and he just thought, she won't need, this'll show her. I'm sure that's what he thought. This'll show her. I'll go get some comfort. I'll deal with a girl that it doesn't matter what I do, because she'll be happy to see me no matter what. And of course Miss Dolly was, because she was trying to pull out of that area. She was trying to move herself up in society. So, I'll show them. I have no doubt that that's exactly what was going on. Well, unfortunately, Herman had made his fiancée, his legitimate fiancée, the lady of good reputation, she knew that he had gone down to this red light district. She decided, I'm going to go down there and I'm going to get my guy. And I'm going to bring him home and we're going to straighten this mess out. I'm sure that is not exactly how she said it, but that's really what went on. So she decided to take off from where she lived, and head on down into that red light district to find him. In the meantime, Herman had arrived down at the place of ill repute where Miss Dolly was lodged, although later in trial she would claim that she did not know it was a place of ill repute and that she in fact was not a prostitute. I don't really believe this, but this is what she said. So she told Herman, hey, let's get out of here. Let's go on down and let's go from place to place to place and let's party it up. Let's have a great time. And I'm sure that after having his fight with his lady, Herman was like, that sounds fantastic. It'll be a night where I can just go and relax and do what I need to do and have a great time. So off they went. In fact, Miss Dolly says that she left her nightgown on and that Herman threw a coat over her. Now, would a real lady do this? Probably not in 1914, no. But this is what Miss Dolly did. So she threw on her coat over her nightgown. It was cold. And they took off to go to party to party. Going party to party, they then ran into Herman's legitimate fiance. I'm going to call his legitimate fiance because of the fact that she was higher society. In higher society, she would have been seen as the legitimate one. So let's just say Miss Dolly and the legitimate fiance, okay? We'll just make it easy that way. So this legitimate fiance ran into them in the street. He stopped to talk to her. Dolly, upset, decided that this was not going to work for her. Herman had arrived. He had left a pistol in her room. And leaving that pistol in her room, she knew she could get a hold of it. And she made a decision, a fateful decision that evening, that she was going to go back, she was going to get that pistol, and she was going to come down. And if Herman decided that he was going to go home with his legitimate fiance, she was going to get him and shoot him. She had the gun. It was going to happen. Well, Herman decided to have this fight with his girl. He knew his legitimate fiance and him, probably there was a lot of love, it was a tiff, they worked things out, but he still needed to go talk to Dolly. Now that would lead you to believe that he had at least some feelings for Dolly, or he was a fairly good stand-up guy. So the legitimate fiance then headed back to her home. Herman, on the other hand, probably a bit tipsy, probably not making the best decisions, stayed in that area. Dolly, returning, sorry y'all for fidgeting, these bugs are killing me. Dolly returning now with her nightgown on and her coat over, had the pistol in her pocket. She walked up to Herman. He was still there. She was glad. But where was this other girl? Now that she knew that this other girl was around. Sorry, y'all, I'm worried that I'm not in focus. If I'm not, I'm not. I'm sorry about that, guys. Now that she knew that Herman was still there, she was happy to see him. But she was not happy that the girl had shown up. She was not happy that the girl had said that she was his legitimate fiance, and she was not happy that Herman hadn't been spending enough time with her lately. So what did Miss Dolly decide to do? She decided to mouth off. Well, no doubt, this was probably not the best idea around Herman at this moment, to mouth off. It was probably not the best idea because of the fact that, my goodness, Herman had already had this fight with his legitimate fiance. He had come here to have a nice quiet evening. He was done. Enough was enough with his females and these female dramas. But he was now in this situation. The legitimate fiance has gone home. Dolly is standing there, and Herman's just pissed. He's just had enough. Just enough. Finally, according to Miss Dolly, whether this happened, nobody knows, because nobody saw, but according to her, when she's mouthing off, Herman turns around and punches her twice in the face and then begins to choke her. We don't know if that was because of the fact that he couldn't choke his legitimate fiance, or if he's just so sick of the drama, or if he really just didn't want anything to do with Dolly at that point because he realized he had made a mistake. We won't know that. But he was now here. This was going on. So here we go. Dolly Dolly is now being strangled. She's been punched a couple times. According to her, it was self-defense. She takes out the pistol and she shoots him, and Herman's dead. Now, this doesn't go well. Remember, we're in 1914. Social rules are completely different. Herman's dead. Dolly, a prostitute from the Louisville area, is now the only one left to say anything. This isn't good, y'all. It's not good at all. So Dolly goes to trial, and she gets on the stand, and she says, and we also have to remember, I'm sorry y'all, we're going to interrupt for a second, but we also have to remember that women's word was not taken on the same level as men's. She said that she loved him from the day that she met him, that they were engaged, that it was self-defense. And she sat in front of a jury of all men and pled for her life. Well, Dolly didn't win that fight. Herman, buried off here to the side that we just saw his gravestone. Herman, or Dolly, was then sent to prison. She was sent to prison for the rest of her life, really. She was supposed to end her life there. She went to prison. She was there for a total of 14 months. At the end of those 14 months, she was actually pardoned by the governor. She was pardoned by Governor Rye, it says, on Tuesday, in order that she might spend her closing days of her life at the home of her relatives. According to the statement of prison physician Edwards, she is a victim of tuberculosis in its last stages, and her life can only be hoped to be prolonged by a few months by the best treatment and attention. And they let her go home. She went to Louisville to live with her sister, to live out the final days. Tuberculosis she probably caught in the prison. Norman, Mr. Conditt, was a salesman, it says, at the best firm, but it doesn't tell us what kind of firm. It was a popular salesman of a Nashville firm. One thing to note is that they talk about Miss Dolly's beauty. And this isn't something that they normally talk about when they're doing murderesses in the newspaper. But they said she was one of unusual beauty. I'll see if I can find any pictures of her. I doubt that I'll be able to because she was a woman of ill repute. Most likely there won't be pictures. I've been doing research. I haven't found where Miss Dolly is buried. Norman is buried here in Nashville at the Mont Olivet Cemetery. It is a beautiful cemetery. The folks here are incredibly sweet. Norman is buried in Section 4, Lot 30. On one side there's three family members, on the other there's another three. To read you this last part about her story, Miss Dolly in fact did die of tuberculosis just a couple of months after she was released and was buried just outside of Bowling Green, although it is not known where in Bowling Green. Her grave hasn't been listed online and I'm not sure where. It just says simply that she was buried outside of Bowling Green. Governor Rye, it says, Governor Rye's action in pardoning Dolly Parker was in keeping with the tentative policy which has been keen to follow in the cases of the unfortunate at the state prison who are in the incurable stage of tuberculosis. Since the prison investigation revealed the deplorable conditions which were inherited by the present administration in the absence of more humanitarian things to do, the unfortunate and deserving cases have been permitted to go home to spend their few remaining days with their own people, and where death's relief may come without the stigma of a convict's clothes. Dolly Parker had been in prison for 18 months and was sentenced from 2 to 10 years. So I was wrong, y'all. She was only supposed to be there for 2 to 10 years. And that's really all it says about her. It doesn't tell you her sister's name. It doesn't tell you if she was going to get out. It does tell you a little bit about the court case, but you want to talk about high drama. You have this well-loved doctor's son going down to get some down in the red light district, and you have this jealous rage. Now today we know that crimes of passion are the most easily rehabilitated. Herman was dead. She paid the price. She was now a marked woman. They still put her in jail. But regardless of any of that, would you know by this gravestone that I'm going to put in here in just a second that that was the story, that if you were walking across the cemetery, it's a plain stone. It has a little bit of engraving around it. Nothing spectacular. It's not a 20-foot tower. It's not anything exceptional. But what a story. Okay guys, so we're headed over here to Herman's. This is where I've been talking to you guys, is off the Kirkpatrick's. But I want you to tell me which of these stones in front of us are the ones that have this story. Can you tell? Probably not. There he is. There's Herman. This is the stone, y'all. Would you really even know that Herman had been killed by a lady of the night? Probably not. I don't think I would have. I don't think I even would have given this a second thought, but here it is. Well, the story is, don't go to the red light district. And if you do, be honest, you're not going to marry the girl. Or the guy. I mean, nowadays we can have gigolos. But you're not going to marry him. Don't say it. Again, this is one of the stories beneath. Something to think about when you go into a graveyard. What are the stories that are all around you? These are people, y'all. Alright, I'll see you guys next time. Until then, please remember that when you go through one of these beautiful places, enjoy the artwork. And if you get a chance, investigate the stories beneath. Until next time, bye y'all.